All right. I think we're live. Today, I wanted to do something a little bit different. You know, sometimes I just come on these live streams and I just talk. I just talk at you. Um, and we're gonna do a lot of that today. Don't worry. But I wanted to do a prose analysis with your help. Um, I've got a paragraph. It's a long freaking paragraph, so it's about half a paragraph really from Ursula Le Guin's The Dispossessed. No spoilers, don't worry. It's from toward the beginning of the book, but it was something that jumped out to me as very Le Guinian. That's a word. Yeah, that's a word now. And so I'm gonna do a video, like an actual produced video, talking about this passage. But for those of you who join in on the live streams, I thought it would be cool to take a look at the paragraph together. I have the things that I would normally look at, but I am sure that there are things that you would have as well. Something that you would suggest that I look at for when it comes to good prose. What makes her distinctive? What makes her style good, bad, somewhere in between. Anyway, so I want to do that. Yes, we will get to some Rings of Power stuff a little bit later in the stream, but I wanted to save that. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I don't want to just talk about the Rings of Power every week. I mean, I guess I could. There's no reason I couldn't. But I didn't want it to be just about that every live stream, because I have other things I'm interested in too. Last week I missed this live stream because I was incredibly sick. So sorry about that. But I'm here now, and I'm excited to do this. Okay. Let me show you what I got here. This is my... There we go. All right. The prose analysis for The Dispossessed, Chapter 3, Paragraph 2. Like I said, it's pretty early on in the chapter. So this is, like I said, it's only about half of a paragraph. It goes on after this, but once we get to ultimate apotheosis of the excremental, I was just like, all right, this is bananas. What a line. So I decided to pull this paragraph out and take a look at it. I have done nothing with it yet, as far as analyzing the prose. Oh, here, let me blow that up a little bit so that it's a little more legible. I've done nothing with it. I haven't, the only thing I've done is I pulled out the first sentence and figured I would do that kind of sentence by sentence to see, see what we want to talk about. So we'll pull this out, give that a normal text. Let's see where dormitory shitstool. Nice. Yeah, there will be a little bit of language in here, but not too bad. Don't worry. All right, sentence by sentence. There we go. I think this is the last one. So 4 sentences. Okay, cool. So, oh my gosh, I look over and hear all these comments. So, Mark Quillen, yeah, there's some people here. Thank goodness. Just a few right now. It tends to pick up as we go. So, if anybody, by the way, if anybody comes in as we're going through the live stream, if anybody comes in, it's like, wait, what's going on? I'll count on you guys to help them out in the comments here. Not sure if chat's better here or the Discord. I think while the live stream is going on, probably better and easier to just do it here. But after the live stream's over, yeah, I mean, you can comment on the YouTube video that comes up after that, the on-demand version. But yeah, then you can go over to Discord. That works out great. Little Red's here. Lady Sweden. Alex. The Libromancy podcast. Hello. All right. Only read Wizard of Earthsea so far, but love Ursula's prose. Yeah, that was my we did Wizard of Earthsea for the show a year or two ago, something like that. And yeah, I'm going to be drinking water and tea through this whole thing. So sorry, everybody. My throat demands it. But anyway, that was my only experience as far as I could remember. I could have sworn I could have that I had read something else from Le Guin before that or after that or something. But I if I did, I can't remember. So this is effectively my second exposure to Le Guin, The Dispossessed. And yeah, we are doing an episode on this. It's coming out. I think is it a week from Red can tell me. Hang on. Actually, I can tell me. What's today? The 16th. So yeah, The Dispossessed comes out on the 26th. So 10 days from now, a week from Monday, there will be an author shelf episode with Mary Robinette Kowal talking about The Dispossessed. What's Chesky, Craig? Who's the Libromancy, right? Okay, yeah. Didn't vibe with Earthsea, so The Dispossessed will be my second attempt. I'll be interested to see what you think of that. The Dispossessed. Before we get into the analysis of the text, such as it is, just know going in, this is a book that benefits a lot from setting the right expectations. And The Dispossessed is not much of a story. I think this is fair to say. That's not necessarily a knock. All I mean is that it's not plot driven. It's about there's a planet and a moon, and the planet it's all just kind of like level 2 political theory. Like if you've read in the episode we did with Mary Robinette, I compared it a lot to reading Heinlein or reading Ayn Rand. It's one of those where it's like there's in this case there's even less of a story than you might get with something like Ayn Rand, but really it's like, okay, I'm going to put my characters in situations where they can have conversations, or even just inner monologues about political theory, and so just be aware that's what you're getting into. It's like a 400-page extended essay rumination on her political thoughts. Okay. I want to get to Left-Handed Darkness. I've heard that one's pretty good. Lady Sweden loves politics. All right. Well, there you go. It's Atlas Shrugged. Yeah, it's yeah, kind of. Oh boy, Ayn Rand. All right. I'm waiting for my tea to cool down just enough so I can actually drink it, but I need it. My throat. You guys, I did, every Friday I do this live stream now, but for a year or two, I've been doing a live stream every Friday over at reviews.org. And so I got back on that horse today too. So I've already been talking for an hour, and now it's time for another hour worth of talking. Okay. But I bet Le Guin can make even that readable. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, her style is quite readable. It doesn't always communicate the same things that we're used to prose stylists communicating now. And what I mean by that is, as far as character actions, he walked to this desk and lifted his right arm and picked up this object and put it in his pocket, and then walked back to the other side of the room, and this other character came through the door, nodded their head, and they greeted one another as blah blah blah. Like that kind of. She doesn't really do that, but what she does do is set the ambiance, give the inner monologue, give the dialogue really clearly and interestingly. So, all right, should we get to this? Let's do a little bit of this. Oh boy, hang on. Yeah, that's getting toward drinkable. Okay. Let's blow this up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna put myself down there. Let's just blow that up. Oh no, wrong button. There we go. Hopefully you guys will be able to see that clearly enough. Oh. Okay, so what are some of the things we're looking for? Let's put it right below here. What are some of the things we're looking for? I want to see okay, sentence length, sentence oh gosh, variation. Is that big enough, by the way? Are you guys able to see that? Let me know if that's too small. Oh, this is, yeah, you'll have to read it to find out. If she was trying to hide her political stances, then she failed. At least the way I read it. It's not quite it's not quite into Ayn Rand territory. It's more along Robert Heinlein territory, where Heinlein brought up a lot of things, and you know as you're reading it, you know that there were a lot of things that he's like, here's what I think, and I'm gonna make one of my characters say it. And, you know, sometimes it's pretty clear that's what he's doing, but a lot of times it was more along the lines of, here's an interesting question, let's throw it out there in the story. I have one of my characters ask this question. That was more the impression I got from Heinlein versus Rand, and I think Le Guin falls more into that camp, but I think she let her biases bleed through pretty clearly most of the story. Not that that's such a bad thing. You know, I'm not trying to say that, you know, she failed in some way. Having biases is not such a bad thing. It's when you don't admit to them, and don't, you know, try to come to terms with them. That's the problem. Okay. Let's see. Sentence length, sentence variation. Let's see. So we'll do modifiers, adjectives, and adverbs. What else do we want to see? We want to see... I mean, you guys know that my Germanic versus Germanic versus Latinate split is always interesting to me. I don't know if we're going to do a full breakdown of that, just because it does take some time. I am not... I don't have a built-in etymological dictionary in my head. I do fairly well, but not great, not perfect. What else do you guys want to see? Oh boy. Let's see. Okay. We could maybe get into sentence structure. We're only doing one paragraph, so we're not like analyzing the structure of an entire book or even a chapter. We're only doing part of a paragraph. And okay, so I think this is a decent list. Let me know if you have other things that pop into your head that you would like to see us, you know, take a look at. But this is a good, you know, beginning place to go. I'll probably put this one last. Just, you know, we'll get there if we can. Okay. Good. So in fact, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to copy this. And let's just paste this under each one. Yep. And there we go. Okay, so we can kind of go through each of these. All right. So that's, yeah, we'll come back to that, the full thing. Let me before we actually dive into all this stuff, I'll just tell you a little bit about the paragraph. Chapter 3, paragraph 2. So this is kind of toward the beginning of that chapter. You know, we're not getting into, you know, there are no spoilers. It's not like a story to spoil necessarily. It's just, like I said, ruminations mostly. So there's a character. I was telling you, there's the planet and the moon. The planet is like it's like the cartoon version of of um, a capitalist utopia, so to speak. And then the moon it has a far smaller population, and like 160 or 170 years before the story starts, this group of people left the planet and went to the moon and started kind of it's like an anarchist collective. So it's an anarchist utopia where there's no power structure, there's no hierarchical system in place. It's all it's all very like it's not just second wave feminism, but imagine that time, like the kind of hard left in the 60s, the way that they would kind of construct the utopias in their mind. That's very much what the moon is like. Okay, so now you've got the planet, you've got the moon, and the main character is from the moon, but he's their greatest scientist, and he goes to the planet to work with their scientists, and he has ideas of bridging the divide between the two societies and all that. So this chapter, excuse me, I'm going to be doing that a bit. So this chapter is when he has arrived on the capitalist planet, and they have lots of natural resource. It's basically Earth, kind of the way that she writes it. It's Earth. It has a lot of natural resources, lots of water, where the moon is very arid and barren. Because of the natural resources, they have all this wealth and all this ease. And so he is being shown into his rooms at the university that he goes to research and teach at. So that's our context. That's where we're at. He's taking a look around these rooms. All right, so the bed, let's see, where are we? The bed, a massive bed on 4 legs with a mattress far softer than that of the bunk on the Mindful. That's his ship, or the ship that he came across on. And complex bedclothes, some silky and some warm and thick, and a lot of pillows like cumulus clouds, had a room all to itself. The floor was covered with springy carpeting. There was a chest of drawers of beautifully carved and polished wood, and a closet big enough to hold the clothing of a 10-man dormitory. Then there was the great common room with the fireplace, which he had seen last night, and a third room which contained a bathtub, a washstand, and an elaborate shit stool. This room was evidently for his sole use, as it opened off the bedroom and contained only one of each kind of fixture, though each was of a sensuous luxury that far surpassed mere eroticism, and partook, in Shevik's view, of a kind of ultimate apotheosis of the excremental. Again, great line. I love that line. Okay. So, I don't think I've ever compared my pillows to clouds. Yeah, I don't have this in my house, but when I go visit my mother-in-law, she's a pillow person. A lot, people love lots of pillows, and so when we get ready to go to sleep on this guest bed that they've got, it's like, okay, first you got to take 3 or 4 minutes just to clear the pillows off the bed. Yeah. Diagram of all the sentences. I will be here all day if we fully diagram out all these sentences. Partly because that just takes a while, and partly because I'm really out of practice with diagramming sentences. I haven't done it in a long time. Okay, what did you say? Adverbs as a separate count from combined modifiers. So should we just split that out then? So maybe we'll just do adjectives and adverbs. If there are other modifiers, we can make note of it, but yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right, first of all, why did I pick this paragraph? I picked this paragraph for the reasons that if you've watched my other prose videos, then you're familiar with why I would pick a paragraph like this. It's a descriptive paragraph outside of any exciting action, so it's not a fight scene. It's a descriptive paragraph with no dialogue. Dialogue really throws things off. When you have characters' voices, suddenly, the author is putting on a different voice. It's not their own. And it's not chapter 1. It is early in the book, but it's also not like the second paragraph of the book. Authors are very much on their best behavior with the first sentence, the first paragraph, the first page of their book. Obviously, you've got to hook a reader, right? And so they are, those tend to get written and edited to death, or to life, depending on how you want to think of it. Anyway, so that's why we chose this one. Very simple, very straightforward. And yet she does some interesting things with it, I thought, especially that, obviously this, and we'll get to the apotheosis of the excremental in just a moment. But let's do this first sentence. The bed, a massive bed on 4 legs. All right. So first of all, here's the sentence. The sentence is this: the bed had a room all to itself. That's our base sentence. So already we have something really interesting with a massive, massive modifying group of clauses, right? So, but let's do our sentence length here. What do we got? We got 45 words. Okay, so 45 words. Oh, come on. Well, I guess that's probably something we do once we get to the end of it. Sentence structure. Let's see, massive. Oh my gosh. Is it because I'm sick? Is that why I can't type? So much filler. So much filler, says Lady S. I don't know if I would put it that way. There are other ways that you could do this. The reason why this is okay with me is that let's just say, just for fun, let's rewrite this. We'll do it in a different color, so it'll offset. But let's rewrite this. The bed had a room all to itself. It was massive. Set on 4 legs with a mattress, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So yeah, let's just say it was this. The bed had a room all to itself. Well, let's go back to our other sentence. There, the floor was covered with a springy carpeting. Let's see. If we put those 2 sentences together, so much filler. Well, if you're looking at it as one sentence, yeah, it looks like, it's a lot of stuff in between the beginning and the end of the sentence. But if you said the bed had a room all to itself and then did all that stuff, the floor was covered with springy carpeting, and then all that stuff in the rest of the sentence, it would be boring, right? That's when we get into sentence variation, which, maybe we can talk about after we're done with all these sentences. So I don't have a problem with this, with having all this stuff in there. Okay, so a massive bed on 4 legs with a mattress far softer than that of the bunk. Let's see. Oh yeah, so interesting. So what I like about this, and I don't know, some writers do this instinctively and some don't. So maybe it's very much on purpose. But each clause zooms in on the bed, or on the aspects of the bed. So you start with a massive bed on 4 legs. Okay, so now we've got an idea of the bed frame. Okay, then the mattress was far softer than that of the bunk on the Mindful. Okay, so now we're talking about the mattress, a very soft mattress. Complex bedclothes. This bit about some silky and some warm and thick. Complex bedclothes, these being the sheets, the quilt, the bed skirt, maybe, whatever is on this thing. So now we've gone from the frame to the mattress to the sheets to the pillows. And then at the end, finish off the sentence. Had a room all to itself. But it's a really cool kind of a funnel concept as she's going, zooming in on each aspect of the bed. I like that. Aha. I'm curious how Craig will class apotheosis considering it's Greek. Well, um, with apotheosis, yeah, you're right. It is Greek. Most of our Greek words did end up coming to us through Latin. It seems like they kind of they tended to work their way through Latin. I don't know about apotheosis, but I often I use Latinate as a shorthand for kind of foreign words. I put Greek and Latin together since they often occupy the same or similar things, similar positions in our language. But if it was a Japanese word, that would probably be different than Latin and Greek. Some of the Arabic words that we've borrowed, I might classify different, but Latinate and Greek, I can kind of somehow in my head lump those together, right or wrong. I'm open to correction on that, but we'll see. Let's see. Where were we? Sentence structure. Okay, so adjectives. Oh my gosh, so many freaking adjectives in this. Let's see. Massive. There we go. 4 legs. Far softer. Oh boy, there. Far softer. We're just doing adjectives, so that's 2. Tell me if I miss any. Complex bedclothes. Some silky. That's 4. Some warm and thick. That's 6. With a lot of pillows like cumulus clouds. Had a room all to itself. So we'll call it 6. 6 adverbs. Let's do 6, which gives us 6 out of 45. So, oh gosh, what is that? 1/9, a little more. So for this sentence, we're looking at, oh gosh, doesn't matter. Okay, let's do adverbs. All right. The bed with the mattress far softer. Okay, so there's 1. That is bunk on the mindful. Complex bedclothes. A lot of pillows. Had a room all to itself. Is that really just 1? Okay. We'll call it 1. And yeah, tell me if I'm missing anything or if I misclassify something. We're going to be going, a little faster than I might normally. Okay. All right. So, dramatic Latinate. Let's leave that for now. Well, I don't know. Do we? Yeah. Let's leave it for now. We could be here all day doing dramatic Latinate splits. Okay, so sentence length 45 words. Let's get to this one. Floor, blah, 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 blah. All right, 32 words. Sentence structure. I really do. I love semicolons, you guys. They're out of vogue now. They're largely being replaced by M dashes, which are also great, but I love semicolons. All right. And yeah, we can get into subject verb object, or whatever. Floor was covered with a springy carpeting. Yeah. So a simple SVO here. Do we want to? Yeah, we guess. Is it really an object? It functions that way anyway. There's a chest of drawers, beautifully carved and polished wood. Closet big enough to hold a 10-man dormitory. Yeah, there's not much to talk about here structurally. Pretty simple, straightforward. Just the semicolon throws things off a little bit. Let's see. I'm an M- fan. They have far fewer rules. Spoken like an anarchist utopian, right? Give me those rules, he says. Oh, let's see. Some descriptions are objective, but a lot are relative. Oh, yeah. Whew. Man, this tea is needed, you guys. My throat is still on fire. Okay. So we've got springy carpeting, a chest of drawers, beautifully carved, polished wood. and a closet big enough to hold the clothing of a 10-man dormitory. We're gonna call that an adjective as well. When it's preceding its noun and taking on that hyphen, we're gonna call it an adjectival form of whatever those words are. So, what did I say? 5? Did we get to 5? I think it was 5. Adverbs. Chest of drawers, beautifully carved and polished wood. That's probably more an adjective, or sorry, an adverb. I think I counted that as an adjective. That's probably more an adverb. Beautifully carved, polished wood. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's an adverb. Closet big enough to hold it. Yeah. Can you tell it's been a while since I've done all this? Big enough to hold the clothing of a 10-man dormitory. All right. Yeah, exactly. So if you haven't read this, I was kind of giving a little bit of context before we started. He's from a very austere planet, or moon, I suppose, and he goes to that moon's planet where everything is comparatively very luxurious, sort of a fish out of water situation. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Oh, okay. Yeah, for context. Nicely done. You pulled that up pretty quick. All right, cool. Let's leave Germanic Latinate. Okay. Sentence length here. Oh, and I wanted to talk about the shit stool. And, I know you guys aren't used to me swearing freely, but hey, whatever. She called it a shit stool, so that's what we're going with. 29 words. Now we're getting rid of this for now. Should see another semicolon. Hey, how about that? All right. Third room. Yeah, this one's a little bit different because we've got like the SVO comes a little bit later. So yeah, I don't want to classify that right now. Yeah, it's it would this would be more. I think this would be more interesting. The giving us insight into Shevik's background, if she hadn't had the previous couple of chapters, because she does give us a little bit of insight into, I should say a lot. It's basically just conversation after conversation, after memory after conversation, about that home moon that he came from. And so I think it is effective at reinforcing his feelings about where he's at, but it's not introducing that so much at this point. One thing I do think that we can talk. Maybe we should have something in here about word choice. We'll just do an other category down here, because we should talk about shitstool. This, I think, really does convey something about the society that he came from and the society that he is in now, where we're going to learn more about this in just a moment. But the idea of, calling a toilet a shit stool is, we have all of these euphemisms for a great variety of things, things that are very utilitarian. Excreting is quite utilitarian, and, we regard it with a certain amount of distance, right? We want to keep it a little bit away. So we come up with these euphemisms, like toilet. Toilet is a great example, actually, of a euphemism where it used to be that the toilet was the room, and so then you'd say, I'm going to the toilet, and eventually people just kind of figured out, like, yeah, okay, they're going to the toilet, that they're taking a poo, and so eventually that phrase gives way to calling the thing that you're pooing on the toilet, right? So it's this euphemism, so we don't have to say I'm evacuating my bowels. I'm gonna go evacuate my bowels. I say I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'm going to the toilet, right? And so taking away that euphemistic way of talking about things tells us, I think, to your point, AP, the insight into Shevik's background. This, I think, the idea of the shit stool really does give us that that insight into what kind of society is. It's the kind of society where they don't want to and they can't afford to be euphemistic about stuff because it is so poor, so such a difficult life, such an austere one. Okay. Fun contrast to the last few paragraphs or last few words. Yeah, we'll get there in just a moment. Anyway, so shit stool, euphemism. So yeah, some cool word choice there. If we look at what preceded that, a third room which contained a bathtub. That's one that we still use. We don't use a euphemism for that because bathing isn't gross, right? Bathing isn't shameful or gross, and so we say a bathtub. So yeah, that's not euphemistic. It is a tub for bathing. Great. A stand for washing. Great. So a sink, I guess we would say now. And an elaborate shit stool. I love that. I love this word too. Elaborate. Anybody who's been, to a campground with an unplumbed outhouse, or you go to a country where indoor plumbing isn't as prominent. Go somewhere where they don't have the type of toilet that we're used to using, and not only would a toilet just look like a shit stool, it would look like an elaborate one. Oh my gosh. Look at this tank with all the stuff inside of it. Look at all the pulleys, the levers, the mechanical way in which the water rushes in here and then it flushes down that way. And where does this go? And how does this work? It is very elaborate. I love that. I should say, by the way, if we're talking about the last few words of this paragraph, these are not the last words of this paragraph. This paragraph goes on. I just, I had to cut it off somewhere because it went on for a while. Anyway, but yeah, I think maybe we should move on to that. Oh no, we should do adjectives and adverbs. The great common room with the fireplace, which you'd seen last night. The third room. Third is technically an adjective, but are we going to count it? It's functionally an adjective, but I don't know that our brain processes it quite the same way. Contained a bathtub, a washstand, and an elaborate shit stool. So we'll call it 2 adjectives. I didn't spot any adverbs. Did I? Third room, which contained a bathtub, a washstand, and an elaborate shit stool. There you go. All right. So we're going to call it 0. By the way, like I said, it's been years since I did this sort of thing. And so if I miss something, no shame on my part. Go ahead and throw it in the chat. Let me know. And we're skipping Germanic Latinate for now. We're going to have to do an other down here. Get rid of sentence variation. Okay. So this room was evidently for his sole use as it opened off the bedroom. It contained only one of each kind of fixture. Oh boy. All right. Oh yeah, we should do first things first. 49 words. Oh, anything that we want to talk about with sentence structure. It's long, but it's fairly straightforward. This room was evidently for its sole use as it opened off the bedroom. So those are 2 different clauses, but that's the first thought. contained only one of each kind of fixture. Oh boy, yeah, that we do get into it. This is the most complex thing in this paragraph so far. Oh boy, oh man, you guys, this is making me want to stop live streaming and just drink tea because that feels good. All right. Let's see. We could go and diagram this. I don't want to stop the live stream right in its tracks. Oops. So we'll just note this. If I do a video on it for the channel, I'll go ahead and break that down a little bit more about exactly how this sentence works. But for now, it's good enough to note that that this is our first. Man, is that really big enough? Can we go to like 175? There we go. That this first part is kind of the first thought, and then we can kind of say that this is our second thought. All right. And we want to talk about this. I love this sentence. Okay. So let's get rid of that. Oops. I love this sentence because of this phrase. Now, this phrase needs a little bit of contextualization, which is that in this book, already before we've gotten to this point, he's talked about this philosopher from the original planet. This philosopher gives out all of her, expounds all of her philosophy, and then these people take it up and they take it to the moon, and they're living by her philosophy. And one of her famous lines that he repeats several times throughout the book is that excess is excrement. So yeah, we can kind of let's do it. Excess is excrement. It's an interesting line. Obviously, it's a cool line. There we go. Excess is excrement. And the idea being, do you guys remember? So back at was it the 2012 or the 2016 presidential elections? I remember at one point Bernie Sanders was giving some speech, and he was talking about why do we need why do I go to the store and see 20 different brands of deodorant? He's talking about deodorant. This would be along those lines, like excess is excrement. The body politic, the social body, if it's producing more than it needs, then it is essentially shit. Literally, not just to be crass or crude. That anything in excess is excrement. Okay, so excess is excrement, but she did the coolest thing. The ultimate apotheosis of excremental really jumped out to me because what is she referring to? She's referring to a bathroom. She's referring to a bathroom with a bathtub, a sink, and an elaborate shit stool, a toilet, right? And so in one moment, she kind of brings both things, the literal and the figurative, into play here. Because what is apotheosis? It's kind of lifting something up to the divine. This idea of a mortal being made divine. So if you go, wasn't this in a Dan Brown book or something? If you go to Washington, D.C., you go in the Capitol and you look up in the dome of the Capitol, and there's a painting called The Apotheosis of Washington. Disgusting, awful, terrible. I think it's a blight on on Washington, D.C. But it is interesting because it kind of illustrates the regard with which the artist and whoever commissioned it held George Washington. But it paints him basically as God. And so that's an apotheosis. Like George Washington, he has transcended humanity. He's transcended mortality. and he has become as God, right? And so that's apotheosis. Or at least that's one definition. We could actually let's go ahead and apotheosis. Let's pull it up here. All right. Greek is, so this says it did come to us through Latin. I wonder how, because it doesn't say anything. All right. So the highest point in the development of something, the culmination or climax, or the elevation of someone to divine status, deification. Okay. So if we keep that in mind, the deification. All right. So the deification of the excremental, just by, this sensuous luxury that far surpassed mere eroticism. That's another word we could get into. And partook in Chevik's view of a kind of ultimate apotheosis of the excremental. So you're taking an elaborate shit stool and saying that this is the deification of pooping, which is just hilarious. I find that funny. I think it's not only it's not only a cool line, it's also a funny line. What was a joke? I guess I missed something. Anyway, but if we look at the other, oh, sorry, I know that's really tiny. The highest point in the development of something, culmination or climax. And so if we look at this idea of excess is excrement as political philosophy, then, much like Bernie Sanders, 15 brands of deodorant, the idea of a bathroom for sole use by one person that has its own sink, bathtub, toilet, that this is the culmination. This is the highest point. This is the embodiment of the concept of excess is excrement. And so what a really, really clever way. I don't know how I'm going to write all that down. Ultimate apotheosis of the excremental is a fabulous. I double entendre is whatever. If we loosen our definition of that, that's fine. Okay, yeah, we'll leave it there. Now, I want to talk about something else. Why? Because it's such a great phrase. The ultimate apotheosis of the excremental. I noticed something about this when I was kind of staring at it for a moment as I was reading the book. I had to move on, so I didn't. I hope that this holds true, but I'm pretty sure it is. This uses. I don't know if there is a word for it, if it's really a concept at all, or if I'm just kind of making crap up. Very possible. But alliteration. Let's talk about alliteration for a second. She hasn't been using it much in this paragraph. I haven't seen a lot of straight up alliteration where you start each word with the same sound. So let's see. I don't see much of anything that way. If there is, it's probably just incidental. But let's look at this phrase, the ultimate apotheosis of excremental. Ultimate. So, So my point here just being that we have kind of the to use terms that I don't love, the short vowel from each one, the ultimate apotheosis of the excremental. So at no point do we have an U, an A, or an A, or even an whatever. So we have kind of a schwa, and then an eh. And I thought that was interesting. Again, maybe it's nothing. Maybe this is just me kind of making crap up to try to. I'm groping toward why this line hit me so hard, and it could just be because it's a funny line. But is there anything else to it? So this may be a dead end road. But if we look at how she used those vowels, they flow so well together because it's very near that sort of alliterative style. Maybe. All right. Where's Huron when we need it? Need him. I think she's pretty poetical as well. Yeah, we should talk about that. Let's talk about that for a moment. This whole concept that I'm talking about with this phrase here, very poetic, very poetic. Now, if we're doing a prose analysis and I say that something is very poetic, does that mean that it's bad prose? Not necessarily. What I would say is, let's see, let's get down here. We'll diagram something out, just something very simple. We have, writing. Okay, oops. We have writing. And underneath writing, we have prose. And we have poetry. I wonder if they'll let me, will they? Oh, I bet they won't. Nope. Maybe I can do, maybe I can do like a 2-column situation. I don't know if they're going to let me do that. That's what I get for doing these things on the fly. Oh gosh, you guys, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Okay. I'll tell you what we'll do. Do a little table. There we go. Prose and poetry. There we go. All right. So see, it only took me 5 minutes. So, when we're analyzing somebody's prose, if you want to say, hey, she's getting really poetic with this line here, the ultimate apotheosis of the excremental, and this whole sentence, and really some of the stuff that came before just drips with poetry. If you want to say, hey, she's getting really poetic here, that's not very good prose. Then I would say, hey, yeah, it's a defensible statement. Okay, it's too poetic. That means it's not prosaic. Fair enough. But what I don't want to fall into the trap of, because as you guys know, I'm trying to kind of help us all resurrect the idea of prose being valuable. It's not just about poetry, right? Prose can be valuable. Prose is valuable. But anyway, so my point being, hey, this is really poetic. That means it's bad prose. That's a defensible statement. Hey, this is really poetic. Therefore, she's not writing well. That's where we run into trouble, and where I don't want to go with the idea of prose versus poetry, and my quest to rehabilitate our idea of prose. I don't want to do that at the expense of poetry. And I certainly don't want to draw a straight line from good writing to good prose. That is not what I want to do. So anyway, just a little digression. So let's see. I didn't know about short, long vowel alliteration. I don't know if it's a thing. I'm just saying it jumped out to me. If we look at ultimate apotheosis of the excremental, it jumped out to me. But it may not. Like I said, this may be incidental. It may be something that she kind of didn't really mean to do, doesn't really care about, that isn't worth caring about. But for me, it was at least something interesting to look at. No drama. Did I say something about no drama? Let's see. I think that poetical prose is good prose. And a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people crave that poetry in the writing that they consume. Totally fine. It depends on your personal preference. Again, I don't mean to say that, one side is better or worse. Let's see. No, it isn't. That is not a defensible statement. Poetic is describing the type of prose. Just as mundane would also be a description. It's not evaluative. Okay. So now do I dare get into my my I wonder if I can find that paragraph. Yeah, I dare. Let's do it. Okay. The cardinal virtue of prose. I wonder if I can. Yep. Okay. I think I should be able to find it here. Okay. So this I think it was Sir Arthur Clutton-Brock back in like the 1910s. Wrote a paragraph that has stuck with me for a long, long time. And I can't shake it. I can't stop thinking about it. You're conflating the meaning of prose and prosaic. I'm not. I promise. The prose. Okay, all right. Let's get into into this paragraph that actually like really kind of lit up my thought centers. So this is Arthur Clutton-Brock. It's up on my shelf. There's the Oxford Book of English Prose. I stumbled across this paragraph when I was 20 years old, and I haven't stopped thinking about it for 15, 16 years. But let's go through this. Prose of its very nature is longer than verse, and the virtues peculiar to it manifest themselves gradually. If the cardinal virtue of poetry is love, the cardinal virtue of prose is justice. Whereas love makes you act and speak on the spur of the moment, justice needs inquiry, patience, and a control even of the noblest passions. By justice here, I do not mean justice only to particular people or ideas, but a habit of justice in all the processes of thought, a style tranquilized and a form molded by that habit. The master of prose is not cold, but will not let any word or image inflame him with a heat irrelevant to his purpose. Unhasting, unresting, he pursues it, subduing all the riches of his mind to it, rejecting all beauties that are not germane to it, making his own beauty out of the very accomplishment of it, out of the whole work and its proportions, so that you must read to the end before you know that it is beautiful. But he has his reward, for he is trusted and convinces, as those who are at the mercy of their own eloquence do not. And he gives a pleasure all the greater for being hardly noticed. For in the best prose, whether narrative or argument, we are so led on as we read that we do not stop to applaud the writer, nor do we stop to question him. So this is okay. So let's now that I've got that out there, you can read through that. Let's see if I can. Okay, so that should give us the whole thing. Prose is a type of writing. We then have different types that are no less prose. You're discussing prose in terms of fiction, not prose in terms of writing a shopping list, a legal document, and a letter to a loved one, a business email. Prose is not longer than verse by its nature. A short story in prose form is shorter than a long epic poem. It's kind of a category doesn't not have exceptions, but the example that I use a lot is John Donne's "No Man is an Island." Right? We've heard the poem "No Man is an Island," and it clocks in at like, I don't know, 70, 80 words, something like that. It's very short, but it is the distillation of a prose version of it that he had written earlier that goes on for hundreds of words. And he took it, he distilled it down to what he thought was its kind of emotional core. But the prose passage of it does elucidate beyond what we get just from the poetic version of it. Let's see. So, okay, now we're getting into some interesting stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I'd consider a shopping list to have prose. Do you write your shopping lists in verse? That's exactly. It is prose. I mean, it is. It's a type of prose. It's not very, interesting in most ways. I guess, unless you shop for interesting things. There's no intent behind it. Same with a legal document. Au contraire. There's a lot of intent behind a legal document. And let's look at the last bit here, narrative or argument. He's talking about prose, whether it's narrative or argument. There's a lot of intent behind a legal document, much of it argumentative. even, it's often, what's the word I'm looking for? Pre-argumentative, right? Anticipating the argument. So anyway, so prose and poetry, we get up here to this, the cardinal virtue of poetry is love. It's talking about passion, emotion, movement, youth, the things that we associate with poetry and passion. Cardinal virtue of prose is justice. And, we're getting into kind of oh boy, I don't know how prepared I am to get all the way into this, but we're getting into the very definition of Western society, kind of, in a way, this balance of poetry and love versus prose and justice, and how they play together and play off each other, but they are different. And so I would say, just because something isn't formatted as verse doesn't mean it's not poetry. Because if we get into this idea, the cardinal virtue of poetry is love. Love makes you act and speak on the spur of the moment. Let's see. And, we talk about words or images inflaming the author. So that's our idea of poetry. So now if we go back to our Le Guin thing here, there is something about this phrase, and we can talk about the rest of it as well, that gets into like injecting some poetry into this prose. So if something is purely prosaic, it would be less emotional, less passionate, right? But by injecting a poetic phrase like this, just because it's not formatted like verse doesn't mean it's not poetry. And by injecting that, some poetry into the prose, it heightens the writing for many people. People have their different tolerances for what would be considered a decent level of poetry in their prose. People want different things, and that's why different writing styles are what they are. Anyway, okay, where was I? We should have AP on again for a proper fight. That's right. Yeah, a real knockdown, drag out. Verse, drama, and poetry are all types of writing. Right. No sentences in a shopping list. I thought that would be imperative to prose. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Okay. You just conflated prosaic, meaning attributed to prose, and prosaic, meaning mundane. Those are two different but related meanings. That is one way to talk about prosaic, but I mean, prosaic, again, it's what I'm trying to do with this is bring back an understanding of prose in a pure form. It's not something that gets talked about. So am I conflating them? I'm actually trying to separate them. Prosaic doesn't. Let's look up prosaic. Here we go. Yeah. Oh shoot. I need to pull it up on my other page here. Let's look up prosaic. Okay. So yeah, this hasn't changed since the last time I looked it up. Having the style or diction of prose, lacking poetic beauty. First of all, that's fascinating all by itself. Just this definition. Commonplace, unromantic. I think unromantic is a fantastic word for prosaic, and it does apply to something, meaning mundane, perhaps. But it can also mean, the difference between approaching the way you approach a concept, an idea, an event, whatever, you can approach it romantically. And by that, I simply mean, with natural human emotion, the passion that we were talking about earlier. Or you can approach something unromantically, meaning that you are approaching it analytically. So, take your, we live in a society where there's no shortage of political events that get people really exercised, right? And this is kind of talking about the two different ways that we can approach, how we take in our news, or even the way that we relate to our family or our friends or strangers. Do we live our life poetically, or do we live our life prosaically, or what is the balance between the two? How do we approach those two? Romantic. I'm not going to try to, come up with the ultimate definition of romantic, because that would be a fool's errand. But I do think, with most of the definitions that we have of the word romantic, it does give us something to set against when we talk about prose. Anyway, sorry, I'm fumbling around here a little bit. All right. And this is exactly like, characteristic of prose as distinguished from poetry: factual, dull, unimaginative. And this is, let's go back to our what was his name? Arthur Cluttenbrock. His paragraph here: the master of prose is not cold, but will not let any word or image inflame him with a heat irrelevant to his purpose. This is why I hate these definitions of prosaic, because I think prosaic, like dull and unimaginative, make it sound bad. They have a negative connotation to it. Oh, well, I don't want to be dull or unimaginative. Gosh, that doesn't sound nice at all. But in a way, it's what it's talking about. Not letting a word or image inflame him with a heat irrelevant to his purpose. We're talking about clear communication, of the of something seen, something analyzed, something understood. Whereas poetry would be the clear communication of something that's felt, something that's more, heart versus head, right? Where the something that's clearly communicated in poetry is something that's coming from and to the heart. Something that's prosaic is something that's communicated clearly from and to the mind. If that makes any sense. But yeah, one of the reasons I kind of got this bug up my rear end about the definitions of prose is because of definitions like that just drove me crazy. Like something being prosaic means it's bad, and it drives me absolutely nuts. All right. Oh my gosh, you guys, we've been going for an hour 10. Let me know if I missed anything in the Le Guin. I'm going to go through. I'm going to do a little bit more on sentence structure for each of these sentences. Maybe I don't know if I'm going to diagram everything out, but yeah, getting into what makes this a complex sentence structure versus something incredibly simple like we have with this sentence. Anyway, so I'll get a little bit more into it, but let me know if there are other things you want me to look at. And maybe I'll go in and do the Germanic and Latinate thing. We'll see if it's worth it. If something interesting comes out, then I'll include it in the video. But if there is anything, diagramming was the joke. It's not a joke. It can be very useful. But yeah, let me know if there's anything you want me to check out with that paragraph, and I'll do a video about that at some point. But we should probably talk about the Rings of Power, episode 3 and 4, because I was too sick to talk about episode 3 last week. All right. All right. So let's talk about what do we want to talk about? What happened in this week? Should we pull up? Let's do what did I just say? Rings of Power. See if I can pull up an image that we can at least throw up here to. Oh, you know what? I just realized something. Okay. Fine. Open. Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Now at least people will know what we're talking about. It's not a very good image, but we'll make do. Okay, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I'll tell you one thing that I noticed right away, or that I didn't notice right away, that I only noticed now, is what I meant to say. No Harfoots in this episode. No Harfoots. How did we feel about that? I'm fine with it because while I don't terribly mind the Harfoots, I do find them to be the least interesting part of the show. But we got a lot of Numenor in this episode. Let's see. I was thinking about watching Rings of Power, but I heard it's, I think, too much work. So that's why I didn't watch it. I don't know about that. Watch it, enjoy it, have a good time with it. Let's see. No Harfoots, which I thought was interesting. We do get a kind of reference to, at the end, a hint at who the stranger is. What do they call him? The stranger? The fireman, the dude that fell from the sky. And we are going to be getting into spoilers. So, maybe I should put something. Yeah, there we go. Spoiler mode. All right. Yeah. So we get something at the end of the episode where there's a reference to, who do you think that is? There's the comet or the meteor fell from the sky, hit the earth. That's a sign, a portent that that Sauron is returning. And we got that from Adar, I think they call him. So does that mean that he is Sauron? Not necessarily. They do leave some wiggle room still. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's Sauron, but that is our strongest hint to date that is potentially Sauron hanging out with the hobbits, the Harfoots, sorry. Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me considering Sauron, the character later on, who doesn't, he doesn't think of the hobbits, when he's searching for the ring, when he's considering the fate of Middle Earth as he wants it to be. He kind of just, he holds the hobbits in little regard, of little account. And if he spent a bunch of time with them during his return to Middle Earth, then that would be odd, right? That later he didn't really think of them much. All right. There wasn't any dwarves or Elrond in the last one, so the Harfoots move over now. Yeah, I think there was a little bit, but not much. Or was there none at all in episode 3? Anyway, I don't remember. But yeah, you're right. Not much dwarf, Elrond stuff in episode 2. How do I feel about the Numenorians? I'm digging it so far. It's interesting how the visual style they're going with. Speaking of of Greek and Latin, obviously there's some inspiration for the design of Numenor, which makes a lot of sense. The Greeks were a seafaring people, and so it makes some sense that they would borrow some of the design from ancient Greece, or at least the popular conception of ancient Greece. But that's okay. So that's just the design. Story-wise, I'm into it. There's a lot of compression going on here, or I anticipate a lot of compression from when we go from Tarmiriel to. Oh, well, I guess she's not even Tarmiriel yet. She's still the Queen Regent, which it's interesting. But anyway, going from her to Pharazôn to presumably the downfall of Numenor. That's in the book, in the lore, of course, that takes decades, and here it looks like they're going to compress that down, which is fine. It's fine. But yeah, I'm enjoying the Numenorian storyline. I like that they didn't try to do too much exposition with the Numenorians. That with the elves in episode 1, they really raced through the first age. With the prologue, they raced through the first age. They gave us just the tiniest little sketch of what was going on. There's a part of me that wishes they hadn't. It was cool to see Valinor on screen, to see the trees, like that was all delightful. But narratively, I like what they did with the Numenorians, what they are doing with the Numenorians, which is you drop them in kind of like when they're on the precipice of kicking their moral decline into high gear and like really just going downhill. And so they bring us kind of poised at that ledge, and they're going to shove us off at some point. But all of the stuff that came before is just kind of hinted at, and it's not clearly spelled out, and I like that. I think it's cool the way that they dropped us in. So I kind of wish they'd done that with the elves in episode 1, but again, kind of not, because I like the prologue. Okay. All right. So far, there's always Galadriel and something in the Southlands. Yeah. She's going to be our main protagonist, it seems like, and we got to set up the main antagonist being Sauron, so it makes sense that those would be our main storylines. Let's see. How do you feel about Galadriel being an MC of main character, I think is what that means, of Rings of Power? I heard someone say they wish she wasn't a main character because she's so deific in Lord of the Rings. Yeah, kind of like bringing your heroes crashing down to earth. Yeah, that makes sense. I am fine with it. I guess everybody reads these stories a different way, right? So, take this for what it's worth. This is just me and my way of reading these stories. My mind does fill in a lot of headcanon when it comes to somebody like Galadriel. And she studies, she becomes who she is in Valinor, and comes over to Middle Earth, studies with Melian, learns how to put a girdle around a forest, which sounds like a lot of fun. And like we get these little tidbits of what Galadriel's up to and what type of character she is, and my mind naturally kind of fills in the gaps. So we get this 30,000 foot view, what's going on the ground, and my mind naturally fills that in. And so for a long time, she hasn't felt deific the way that she does in the Lord of the Rings films, or even the books to a certain extent, just because of that headcanon. And, like I was saying a couple weeks ago, that headcanon is something we have to be willing to let go of and see somebody else's headcanon. That's all fine by me. So yeah, I'm okay with her being a main character. There are choices they have made and choices I'm sure they will make that will make me cringe a little bit. But again, I just have to let go and say, that's okay. That's, not the choice I would have made, but fine. Just tell me the story. Let's see. Adar is father, isn't it? Yep. So a twisted elf that was a progenitor of the orcs. If you use that creation myth of the orcs. Oh, yeah, man. I think we kind of have to, because it was the version of the orc creation myth that made it into the Silmarillion. I know there are some other, some alternatives, but we kind of have to go with that one at this point. And Adar, it's Sindarin, isn't it, for father? So a twisted elf that was a progenitor of the orcs, potentially. Yeah, we don't really know much about Adar at this point. Is he somebody who has been around since Lake Cuiviénen? Was he one of the OGs that was taken and tortured and mutilated? I kind of doubt it. That would be cool. That would be very interesting. But I kind of doubt it. I had the thought, I don't think they could use this because he doesn't show up in the Lord of the Rings appendices. But I was wondering about Ale, And you know, an elf like that. I think Ale dies, you know, by the end, but the dark elf, the elf that lives deep in the dark woods and um, you know, takes captives and is, shall we say, morally problematic in a lot of ways. Um, but that kind of character who is potentially corruptible, even just on a moral level, because yeah, he has some scarring, but he's still recognizably an elf. He hasn't been twisted and mutilated into an orc at this point, at least as far as I can tell. Uh, and so yeah, so I wonder if it's he's still an elf, but he's morally corrupted to the point that he is. I don't know. I'm interested in him. I'm fascinated by him, and I love the actor that plays him too. The guy that plays him is, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's the same guy that played Uncle Benjen in Game of Thrones, and he just has the most interesting face, which, as you guys have heard me say before, is pretty vital for me. I it's more important that somebody on TV be interesting looking and like cool to look at than that they be purely good looking. And he's very interesting. Love that guy's face. So, you know, who cares about this stuff? We don't get into politics here. And honestly, if that's what somebody comes at me with, oh, it's too woke, I'm really not going to pay much attention to anything they say after that. So, who cares? Just give it a shot. You can decide for yourself if you like it. Let's see. The Numenorian stuff is my favorite part overall. Farazon is appropriately prideful and pretty unlikable so far. Yeah, that's true. Muriel knows about the literal precipice told by a Palantir. That's something new. Yeah, that is something new. At least as far as we know. You know, again, it's only a sketch. So I like that little tidbit. Okay. 6 other Palantir are apparently lost. Hope they find them all before the faithful goes west. Well, they kind of have to. You know, they're probably in Middle Earth already. If I had to guess about what they'll do with the Palantiri, that one will be saved by Elendil and taken to Middle Earth, and because the 7 Palantiri were in Middle Earth. Oh no, I guess did Elendil take all 7 with him? Because they took 4 up north and 3 down south. I can't remember every tower that they were at, but Minas Ithil, Minas Anor, Osgiliath, Amonsul. Oh shoot, yeah, I've lost where they all were, but I can't remember when they all got there. Okay. I thought of Ale too, looking at him. I just had to look up the fact that he's for sure dead. Yeah, that's true. Unlikely he survived Gondolin. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Is this the time when the Numenorians start to settle on the shores and take over Middle Earth? Yeah, lore-wise, they've been doing that for a long time. Coming as conquerors and being generally dickish. In Middle Earth. They've been doing that for a few generations, which in Numenorian terms is a long, long time. So yeah, the king before Tar Palantir was awful. It set awful things into motion, and then Tar Palantir tries to claw back the Numenorian culture from the moral abyss. He fails. His daughter gives it a shot. She fails, and then Ar-Pharazôn, yeah, makes it official. So yeah, they've been doing this for a while, but I wonder what they're doing with this, because this feels a little bit. This feels like a departure. It's a bit like when the elves show up at at Helm's Deep in the Two Towers movie, when the elves show up and it's like, okay, this feels a little bit like that. Like, oh, the Numenorians we're gonna be good people and go to Middle Earth to help the humans in the Southland. Lore wise, this feels a little like, okay, but narratively, it makes sense for them to try to set up to try to build them up before tearing the Numenorians down. So Let's see. Trying to get the timeline in comparison to Silmarillion. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. What brought them from the promised land over the flowing sea, 7 stars and 7 stones and 1 white tree? Oh boy. Yeah. They don't seem to do that anymore. They seem isolated on the island. Yeah, they do. They do. So yeah, definitely some changes like that. You know, as long as they get to, like I said, I'm okay with compression, time compression, you know, to a certain extent, of course. I'm okay with them compressing what's going on with the show. And this would be kind of a compression / change in the timeline where, you know, how does it work exactly that they, you know, they morally decline, try to rise up and then decline again. It works a little bit differently than what it seems like they're setting up in the show, but they are setting that up where, you know, hey, they're not looking so hot. Okay, we'll try to be heroic and do something good, and then it's not going to work out, and they're going to fall off that cliff. So it gets the spirit of the story across in a way that I'm fine with. What I'm not fine with, you guys, is how much my throat hurts. So I've been going for almost an hour and a half now. That's a little while. But anyway, I appreciate everybody's thoughts, not just on Lord of the Rings, but you know, on the Prose stuff as well. AP and I, yeah, we should hash it out on prose versus poetry and all that stuff. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. You know, I know that I'm speaking of no man being an island. I feel like I'm an island when it comes to this idea of rehabilitating prose, and so I get that I'm a lonely person in this sort of thing. But it's an interesting dichotomy, I think. It's prose versus poetry, and well, let's just say if I'm the only person in the world obsessed with it, that's okay with me. All right, everybody, have a good one. Enjoy your weekend as well. And I'm not going to bed, but I will have more tea. And I'll tell you what, keep going longer. I'm not going to go longer, but real quick, I will tell you before I go, I'm thinking about, speaking of lore, instead of going into the show every single week, or maybe after the show is over, I thought it might be fun to do a playthrough of Shadow of Mordor and maybe Shadow of War as well, with an eye toward the lore. Because Shadow of Mordor, I haven't finished Shadow of War. I never did finish that one, but Shadow of Mordor, at least, very fun game. Does some violence to the lore and some violence to the NPCs. But I thought that might be fun, as a way to talk about Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth lore, just, doing a playthrough of the game. So let me know if that would be fun. Regardless, everybody have a good weekend. Thanks for coming. I'll see you next time.